I never thought I would find myself crouched behind my kitchen counter, phone in hand, whispering to a 911 operator as my own parents and sisters smashed through my living room with baseball bats. The sound of breaking glass and splintering wood filled the house that had once been my sanctuary. 5 years of silence after they cut me out of their lives, only to return, demanding I sell my home to pay for my sister Amanda's massive debt. Little did they know, I was prepared for this moment. The path that led to my family destroying my living room began long before I purchased my modest 3-bedroom house in a quiet suburb of Portland. At 32 years old, I had worked my way up from a junior developer to a lead software architect at a successful tech company. That house represented everything I had worked for since graduating college with student loans and barely $200 to my name. My sister Amanda was always the golden child in our family. 2 years younger than me, she somehow commanded the lion's share of our parents' attention, affection, and financial support. Where I worked summers and weekends to save for college, Amanda received a fully funded education. Where I was expected to be responsible and self-sufficient, Amanda was coddled and rescued from every poor decision. Growing up in our middle-class neighborhood in Oregon, our parents Tom and Susan made it clear, through their actions, if not their words, that Amanda's needs would always come first. When I needed new shoes for track, I was told the budget was tight. 2 weeks later, Amanda received an expensive dress for a dance. When I won a regional science competition, my parents attended grudgingly and left early. When Amanda participated in a school play with 2 lines of dialogue, they brought flowers and took the family out to celebrate. I accepted this dynamic for most of my life, believing that eventually my parents would recognize my achievements and determination. That fantasy finally shattered 5 years ago when Amanda, fresh out of her 3rd attempt at college, decided she wanted to open an upscale boutique selling imported clothing despite having no business experience. My parents called me to their house for what they described as an important family meeting. I arrived to find them sitting with Amanda at the dining room table, documents spread before them. "Connor," my father began, looking at me with expectation in his eyes, "your sister has an amazing business opportunity, and we need your help to make it happen." The help they wanted was for me to co-sign a $60,000 loan since Amanda's credit was already damaged from unpaid credit cards. When I asked about the business plan and pointed out that most new businesses fail, my father's expression hardened. "This is your sister we're talking about," he said. "Family helps family. Period." "I've worked too hard to risk my financial future," I explained, trying to be diplomatic. "I just bought my house, and my name on a defaulted loan could mean losing everything." My mother's eyes narrowed. "So your house is more important than your sister's dreams? Than this family?" Amanda began crying, a tactic that had always worked to get her way. "I thought you'd be happy for me, Connor. I finally found something I'm passionate about." "I am happy for you," I insisted. "But there are small business loans and grants you could apply for. You could start smaller and grow organically." My father slammed his hand on the table. "That's enough. Your sister needs this opportunity now, not after jumping through hoops for years. If you won't help her, what good are you to this family?" The argument escalated until my father stood up, pointing toward the door. "Until you learn what family means, you're not welcome in this house. Don't call, don't visit. You're choosing money over blood, and I won't have that kind of selfishness in my family." My mother sat silently, tears streaming down her face, but making no move to contradict him. Amanda looked almost satisfied behind her performative sobs. I walked out that night thinking they would cool off eventually. They didn't. Calls went unanswered. Birthday cards were returned unopened. Holiday invitations were met with silence. For 5 long years, I was completely cut off from my family because I wouldn't risk financial ruin for Amanda's latest whim. The isolation was devastating at first. I threw myself into work and home improvement projects, building a life without the family I thought would always be there. I made new friends, created holiday traditions with neighbors, and eventually found a kind of peace in my independence. My house became my sanctuary, each mortgage payment a reminder that I had made the right choice to protect myself. About 2 years into the silence, I ran into my cousin Tyler at a grocery store. He seemed uncomfortable seeing me, but shared a shocking revelation over coffee. According to Tyler, Amanda's boutique had actually opened, with funding from my parents' retirement savings. Surprisingly, it did well for the first 6 months, until Amanda's gambling problem decimated the business. Gambling problem? I asked, stunned. Since when does Amanda gamble? Tyler looked surprised. Since college, man. Everyone in the family knows except you, apparently. Your parents have been bailing her out for years. They made us all promise not to tell you, because they said you already judged her too harshly. This explains so much about the missing money throughout our lives, the mysterious emergencies that required funds, and why my parents always seemed financially strained despite good jobs. They had been enabling Amanda's addiction, while painting me as the villain for not participating in the cycle. As I pulled into my driveway that evening, I realized I had escaped more than financial ruin by refusing to co-sign that loan. I had unwittingly broken free from a toxic family system that would have continued to drain me emotionally and financially for years to come. My house, with its freshly painted walls and carefully tended garden, represented not just financial wisdom, but emotional freedom. Little did I know that this freedom would be violently challenged sooner than I could have imagined. The email arrived on an ordinary Tuesday morning in April, the sender's name causing me to nearly spill my coffee onto my keyboard. Susan Wright, my mother, had broken 5 years of absolute silence with a message titled, "Important Family Matter." My hands trembled slightly as I clicked to open it, unsure whether to feel hope, anger, or dread. "Dear Connor," it began formally, "I hope this message finds you well. I apologize for the years of distance between us. Your father and I would like to meet with you regarding an important family situation that requires your input. Please let us know when you might be available to meet at Wilson's Coffee downtown this week. Love, Mom." The apology felt forced, the love tacked on as an afterthought. But after 5 years of nothing, even this cold communication sparked a confusing mix of emotions. Part of me wanted to delete it immediately. Another part, the part that still remembered Sunday dinners and Christmas mornings before things went so wrong, wanted to respond instantly. I waited a full day before replying, suggesting Thursday afternoon. My mother's response came within minutes, confirming the time and mentioning that my father and Amanda would also be attending. Wilson's Coffee sat in the middle of downtown, a neutral territory with enough public visibility to discourage any scene-making. I arrived early, choosing a corner table with a clear view of the entrance and an easy path to the exit if needed. When they walked in, the sight of them hit me with unexpected force. My father's hair had gone completely gray. My mother looked thinner, with new lines around her eyes. Amanda, however, looked expensively maintained as always, designer sunglasses pushed up on her highlighted hair. They spotted me immediately. My mother attempted a smile that didn't reach her eyes. My father's face remained impassive. Amanda looked everywhere but at me. "Connor," my mother said, leaning in for an awkward half-hug that I stiffly returned. "You look well." "You too," I lied politely. "It's been a long time." My father extended his hand formally, as though meeting a business associate rather than his son. Amanda mumbled a greeting while examining her manicure. "Thank you for agreeing to meet," my mother began once they were seated with their drinks. "We've had some time to reflect on our disagreement, and we realize family needs to come together in difficult times." The insincerity was palpable. This wasn't reconciliation. This was preamble to a request. "What's the important situation you mentioned?" I asked, cutting to the chase. My parents exchanged looks before my father cleared his throat. "It's about your sister. She's in a difficult position and needs family support." Amanda suddenly appeared intensely interested in stirring her latte, still avoiding my eyes. "Amanda has accumulated some debt," my mother continued delicately. "Significant debt, actually, and the people she owes aren't patient types." $170,000, my father stated bluntly, "to people who have made threats." The number hung in the air between us. $170,000. More than twice what they had asked me to co-sign for 5 years ago. "Gambling debts," I stated rather than asked, watching Amanda's head snap up in surprise. "How did you know?" my mother asked, looking genuinely shocked. "Tyler told me years ago about how the boutique failed because of her gambling." My father's expression darkened at the mention of my cousin. "That wasn't his business to share." "Neither is my house your business," I replied, "which I assume is why you're here. You want me to sell my house to pay Amanda's debts." Their silence confirmed my suspicion. Amanda finally spoke up, her voice practiced in the art of victimhood. I made mistakes, Connor. I'm getting help now, I swear. But these people, they don't care about recovery programs. They want their money, and they've threatened Mom and Dad too. We wouldn't ask if there were any other options, my mother added. We've already sold our vacation cabin and emptied most of our retirement accounts. Your house has appreciated significantly, my father said, his tone suggesting this was a reasonable business proposition rather than an outrageous request. You could sell, pay off Amanda's debt, and still have enough for a down payment on something smaller. The audacity left me momentarily speechless. 5 years of silence, not a single birthday or Christmas acknowledgement, and now they expected me to give up my home to save Amanda from her own choices. Again. No, I said simply. Absolutely not. Connor, please, my mother pleaded. Just think about it. There's nothing to think about. I worked for that house. I've spent years making it my home while you all pretended I didn't exist. And now you want me to give it up for Amanda? The same reason you cut me out of the family? My father's face flushed red. This isn't about the past. This is about keeping your sister safe. No, it's about enabling her addiction again, just like you've always done. I won't participate in that. Amanda's practiced tears started flowing. They know where Mom and Dad live, Connor. They've driven by their house. They've made calls. Something in her performance seemed off, too rehearsed. I looked more closely at my parents, noting the genuine fear in their eyes. There's something you're not telling me, I said, studying their reactions. This isn't just about Amanda's safety, is it? My father's jaw tightened, but my mother's eyes darted away, a tell she'd had since I was a child. She was hiding something significant. What else is going on here? I pressed. After a tense silence, my father finally spoke. We told them we could get the money. Told who? The people Amanda owes. We said we had a son with equity in his house and that we could get the money within 30 days. They've given us a deadline. The implications sank in slowly. They had promised my house to criminals without my knowledge or consent, putting themselves in danger in the process. So you not only want me to sell my house for Amanda, but you've already promised my money to people who make threats? Before even speaking to me? We were desperate, my mother whispered. I stood up, gathering my jacket. I can recommend a good financial advisor and addiction counselor. I'll text you their information. But I will not sell my house. I suggest you tell these people the truth and work out a payment plan. Connor, wait, Amanda called as I turned to leave. You don't understand how dangerous these people are. I paused, looking back at the family who had cut me out for protecting myself, only to return when they needed something from me. I understand perfectly, I replied. But this isn't my problem to solve. Not anymore. As I walked out of the coffee shop, I felt their eyes on my back and sensed this wouldn't be the end of the conversation. What I didn't realize was how quickly and violently the situation would escalate. The first sign of trouble appeared the very next morning. My mailbox, normally standing straight at the end of my driveway, had been knocked sideways, the metal dented. Spray painted across it in jagged red letters was a single word: selfish. I reported the vandalism to the police, who took down the information with mild interest but little promise of investigation. Random property damage happens, they explained. Without evidence pointing to specific perpetrators, there wasn't much they could do. 2 days later, the text messages began. Unknown numbers sending increasingly concerning messages. Family takes care of family. Or else. Your sister's time is running out. Is your house worth her safety? We know where you live. We know where you work. Family obligations can't be escaped. I changed my number, but somehow new messages found me within days. The next escalation came when my parents showed up at my workplace unannounced. I was called out of an important client meeting to find them standing in the reception area, my mother wringing her hands nervously while my father looked grimly determined. You need to come with us now, my father demanded, without preamble. We have a meeting with the bank about your house. The receptionist and several coworkers were watching with undisguised interest. I kept my voice low and controlled. I'm in the middle of a workday, and I've already told you I'm not selling my house. This isn't a request, Connor, he said, voice rising. This is family. Sir, our security guard Jeff approached cautiously. I'm going to have to ask you to lower your voice. This is between me and my son, my father snapped. Dad, I said firmly, you need to leave. Now, before you get yourself escorted out. My mother began crying, drawing even more attention. Please, Connor, just talk to us. Security ended up walking them to the exit while I returned to my meeting, face burning with embarrassment. My boss Travis called me into his office afterward. Everything okay, Connor? He asked. Concern mixed with professional caution in his voice. Family issues, I explained vaguely. I'm handling it. Make sure you do, he said. We value you here, but we can't have scenes like that disrupting business. The implied warning was clear. I needed to resolve this situation before it affected my career. That weekend, mutual friends began reaching out with concerned messages. According to them, Amanda was spreading stories about how I was leaving her vulnerable to dangerous loan sharks out of spite. She claimed I had promised to help her years ago and had broken that promise, leaving her desperate and afraid. Some friends were skeptical, knowing my responsible nature, but others were fully convinced by Amanda's tearful performances. While picking up groceries, I ran into my Aunt Janice, who looked at me with such disappointment that I felt like a scolded child again. I never thought you'd be so heartless, Connor, she said, shaking her head. After all your parents did for you growing up, you don't know the whole story. I tried to explain, but she cut me off. I know enough. Family helps family. Period. The same phrase my father had used 5 years ago, parroted back by relatives who hadn't heard from me in years. Amanda was running a coordinated campaign to isolate me and apply maximum pressure from all sides. Driving home that evening, I noticed a familiar car parked a block from my house. As I passed, I caught a glimpse of my father behind the wheel, quickly looking away when our eyes met. A chill ran down my spine as I realized they were monitoring my home. The next day, I installed a comprehensive security system with cameras covering every approach to my house. I spoke with my immediate neighbors, explaining that I was having family issues and asking them to report any suspicious activity around my property. Most were understanding, especially the Johnsons next door, who had witnessed my mailbox vandalism. We've got your back, Paul Johnson assured me. Family can be complicated. We'll keep an eye out. 3 more signs of escalation appeared in quick succession. A brick thrown through my car window while I was at work. Photos of me going about my daily routine texted from another unknown number. And finally, a USB drive left on my doorstep containing a video of someone filming the inside of my house through windows. The message was clear. We can get to you anytime. Each incident was reported to police, creating a paper trail but little active investigation. Until they actually do something more than property damage or harassment, our hands are tied, the officer explained after the 3rd report. Just when I thought things couldn't get more stressful, I received a call from my Aunt Sarah, my father's sister, and the only relative who had maintained occasional contact after the family split. Connor, I'm worried about what's happening, she said, her voice low as if afraid of being overheard. Do you know your parents took out a second mortgage on their house to pay part of Amanda's debts? What? This was news to me. They said they used their retirement and sold the cabin. Those two, Sarah confirmed. But it wasn't enough. They're 3 months behind on the second mortgage payments. The bank is threatening foreclosure. The pieces finally clicked into place. My parents weren't just trying to save Amanda, they were trying to save themselves too. They had tied their financial future to Amanda's gambling problem so completely that they were now facing homelessness. My house represented their last hope of avoiding financial ruin. Why are you telling me this? I asked Sarah. Her response chilled me. Because I'm worried about what they might do next. Your father has been saying things, Connor. Desperate things. I've never seen him like this before. After thanking Sarah for the warning, I immediately checked all my security cameras and doubled down on precautions. As I reviewed the footage from the previous few days, I noticed something disturbing. My parents' car had driven by my house 14 times in 3 days. Twice, they had parked across the street for over an hour, just watching. That night, I barely slept, jumping at every sound, wondering if my own family was capable of worse than harassment and vandalism. By morning, I knew I needed a more comprehensive strategy than just security cameras and police reports. They had made it clear they wouldn't stop until they got what they wanted, and what they wanted was my house. They're not going to stop, Jack said, taking a swig of his beer. My best friend since college had listened patiently to the whole sordid story as we sat on my back deck, carefully positioned out of sight from the street. You need to think outside the box here. Jack had always been my voice of reason, the pragmatic counterweight to my sometimes idealistic thinking. As a financial advisor who had seen countless family money disputes, he understood the situation with crystal clarity. What would you do? I asked him. He set his beer down, expression serious. First, accept that they see your house as their salvation. They've convinced themselves they're entitled to it, and no amount of reasoning will change that. Second, protect yourself legally and physically, because desperate people make dangerous choices. The next day, I took a personal day from work and met with Diana Edwards, a real estate attorney Jack had recommended. Her office was on the 20th floor of a downtown high-rise, with views of the river and mountains beyond. So your family is pressuring you to sell your home to pay gambling debts they guaranteed, without your knowledge or consent. Diana summarized after I explained the situation. And they've escalated to property damage and what appears to be stalking behavior. That's right, I confirmed. I've filed police reports, installed security systems, but they're getting more aggressive. Diana tapped her pen thoughtfully against her legal pad. The simplest solution would be a restraining order, but that only works if people respect legal boundaries. Based on what you've described, your family is beyond that point. Exactly. And I can't live in a constant state of vigilance. She leaned forward. Have you considered temporarily transferring ownership of the property while maintaining residency rights? What do you mean? You could sell the house to a living trust, with a trusted friend as trustee. On paper, you no longer own the house, but you maintain the right to live there through a lease agreement with the trust. If your family or these creditors search property records, they'll find the house belongs to the trust, not to you. Would that be legal? Wouldn't it look like I'm hiding assets? Diana shook her head. As long as the sale is for fair market value and properly documented, it's perfectly legal. People transfer properties to trusts for estate planning all the time. The key is timing and documentation. If we do this after your family has made legal claims against you, it could appear fraudulent. But right now, you're simply reorganizing your assets proactively. The plan had elegance. I wouldn't lose my home, but on paper, I wouldn't own it either, making it impossible for Amanda's creditors to force a sale. Jack agreed to serve as trustee, and within a week, all the paperwork was completed. My house now legally belonged to the Evergreen Living Trust, with Jack as trustee and me as the beneficiary with lifetime tenancy rights. Concurrent with the legal maneuvers, I doubled down on security. I upgraded to a system that would alert both a private security company and the police automatically in case of break-in. I reinforced all doors and windows, installed motion-activated lighting around the perimeter, and set up internal cameras that I could monitor remotely. With the legal and physical protections in place, I made one final attempt at reasonable communication with my family. I invited them to meet me at a restaurant, hoping the public setting would encourage civil behavior. To my surprise, they accepted. My parents arrived looking haggard and sleep-deprived. Amanda's designer clothes couldn't hide her nervous fidgeting and bloodshot eyes. "Thank you for meeting me," I began. "I want to offer a solution that doesn't involve my house." My father's expression was guarded. "We're listening. I've researched debt management and gambling addiction recovery programs. I'm willing to pay for professional financial counseling for all of you, and addiction treatment for Amanda. There are legal ways to negotiate with creditors, even ones outside traditional banking." Amanda scoffed. "Therapy isn't going to make $170,000 appear. It might help prevent the next $170,000 in debt," I countered. "This cycle has to stop somewhere." My mother reached across the table toward me, her hand trembling slightly. "Connor, we appreciate the offer, but you don't understand the immediacy of the situation. These people want their money now. They don't care about Amanda's recovery journey." "How much have you already paid them?" I asked, watching their reactions carefully. My father frowned. "What do you mean?" "Aunt Sarah told me about the second mortgage." "You've already paid these people something, right? How much?" My parents exchanged uncomfortable glances, but Amanda suddenly found her water glass fascinating. "We've paid about $60,000 so far," my mother admitted reluctantly. I turned to Amanda. "Is that right? Only $60,000 out of the $170,000 has been paid?" Her eyes darted nervously to our parents before she nodded. And the original debt was $170,000? No more? No less? Why are you interrogating her? My father demanded. Because something doesn't add up. You sold your cabin, emptied retirement accounts, and took out a second mortgage. That should be well over $60,000. Where did the rest of the money go? The silence that followed was deafening. My mother looked confused, turning to Amanda, whose face had gone pale. Amanda? My mother questioned. What is Connor talking about? Amanda's composure cracked. It doesn't matter. What matters is we still owe $110,000 and they want it in 2 weeks. But I had seen the flash of guilt in her eyes. You've been lying about the total, haven't you? Taking money from mom and dad supposedly for the debt, but keeping some for yourself. That's ridiculous, she protested. But her denial lacked conviction. My father's face had gone from defensive to confused to suspicious as he watched Amanda's reaction. Amanda, is this true? Have you been honest about how much you've paid these people? Of course I have, she insisted, but her voice wavered. I stood up, having seen enough. I think you all need to have a conversation about exactly how much money has changed hands and where it went. My offer stands for financial counseling and addiction treatment. The house is not an option. As I walked away, I heard my mother's distressed questions and Amanda's increasingly desperate denials. The family that had presented a united front against me was beginning to fracture under the weight of their own deceptions. I hoped the cracks might lead to honest reflection, but I wasn't optimistic. That night, I checked and double-checked all my security systems before trying to sleep. Despite all my precautions, I couldn't shake the feeling that the worst was yet to come. The break in my family drama came unexpectedly, when a conference in Seattle gave me legitimate reason to be away from home for a weekend. I left on Friday morning, security system fully armed, and neighbors alerted to my absence. The mental reprieve of focusing on work for 2 days straight was exactly what I needed. Sunday afternoon, as I turned onto my street, I immediately noticed something was wrong. Even from a distance, I could see spray paint covering my garage door. Drawing closer, my stomach dropped at the words scrawled in red, Selfish Son and Deadline Monday. The misspelling would have been almost comical if the implications weren't so serious. But the vandalism didn't stop there. My carefully tended front yard had been destroyed. Flowering bushes uprooted, garden ornaments smashed, and the small Japanese maple I'd planted the previous spring snapped in half. I called the police before even entering the house, waiting in my car until they arrived 20 minutes later. Officer Ramirez, who had taken 2 of my previous reports, surveyed the damage with a grim expression. This is escalating, she noted, taking photos of the destruction. Any idea who might have done this? I explained my suspicions about my family, describing the ongoing situation and showing her the previous police reports. We'll check if any of your security cameras caught the perpetrators, she said. The front cameras had been spray-painted black, but the side camera had captured 3 figures in hooded sweatshirts methodically destroying my garden. Their faces weren't visible, but one figure was noticeably shorter and moved with a familiar gait. That's my sister, I told Officer Ramirez, pointing to the smallest figure. And I'm almost certain the others are my parents. She reviewed the footage carefully. Unfortunately, without clear facial identification, this isn't enough for an arrest. We can question them, but without confession or better evidence, the DA won't pursue charges. After filing yet another report and arranging for emergency repairs to secure the garage, I spent Sunday night in a hotel, too unsettled to stay in my vandalized home. Monday morning, I called my boss and explained the situation, requesting to work remotely for the week. Thankfully, Travis was understanding, especially after I forwarded him photos of the damage. Take whatever time you need, he said. Just keep hitting your deadlines and join meetings virtually. By Tuesday afternoon, the garage door had been replaced, security cameras repaired, and the yard partially cleared of debris. I returned home with a strange mixture of defiance and apprehension. This was my house, and I refused to be driven from it by intimidation, but the knowledge that my own family would go this far left me deeply unsettled. That evening, as I worked from my home office, my phone pinged with a text message from an unknown number. The message was simple. Last chance. Sell the house or face consequences. 48 hours. I forwarded the message to Officer Ramirez, who promised to add it to my case file but offered little else. Document everything, she advised, and consider staying elsewhere if you're concerned. Instead, I called the private security company and arranged for periodic drive-by checks of my property for the next week. I also reached out to the Johnsons next door, who agreed to keep an extra eye on my place and call police at the first sign of trouble. Wednesday passed without incident, then Thursday morning. By Thursday afternoon, I had begun to wonder if the threat had been empty, a final attempt to scare me into compliance. I worked from my kitchen table, alternating between coding and checking the security camera feeds on my laptop. At 3:15 in the afternoon, a car I instantly recognized as my parents pulled up across the street. My father, mother, and sister sat inside, seemingly arguing. After several minutes, they drove away without approaching the house. The pattern repeated at 5:20, then again at 7:45. They were casing my house, working up the courage, or waiting for the right moment. I called the non-emergency police line again, reporting the suspicious behavior and requesting additional patrol cars in the area. The dispatcher assured me they would send cars past my address throughout the night. I slept fitfully, waking at every sound. By Friday morning, I was exhausted but slightly relieved that the 48-hour deadline had passed without incident. Perhaps the police presence had deterred whatever they had planned. That momentary relief shattered at 2:17 Friday afternoon. I was on a video conference with clients when I heard the distinct sound of breaking glass from the front of the house. Hurriedly muting my microphone and turning off my camera, I opened my security app to see 3 familiar figures entering my living room through the broken front window. My father carried a baseball bat, my mother a crowbar. Amanda appeared to be directing them toward specific items, pointing to my television and sound system. This wasn't just vandalism, it was a planned robbery. Heart-pounding, I locked my office door and called 911, speaking in urgent whispers. 3 intruders have broken into my home. I'm locked in the office. They're armed with bats and crowbars. Please hurry. Are you in immediate danger? Can you safely exit the house? The dispatcher asked. No, they're between me and all exits. I can see them on my security cameras. They're destroying my living room. The sound of splintering wood and breaking glass grew louder. On my phone screen, I watched in horror as my father swung his bat into my television while my mother used the crowbar to shatter the glass coffee table I had saved for months to buy. Police are on their way, the dispatcher assured me. Stay on the line and remain hidden. Amanda moved with purpose, directing my parents toward my most valuable possessions, like a conductor leading an orchestra of destruction. She pointed to the antique clock on the mantel, a family heirloom from my grandfather who had always believed in me. My mother knocked it to the floor where it broke into pieces. The entertainment center has expensive electronics, I heard Amanda say, her voice carrying through the house. And check the kitchen for high-end appliances we can take. Those fancy coffee machines are worth hundreds. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. This wasn't just about punishing me for not selling the house. Amanda was identifying items they could sell, turning simple revenge into profitable theft. As they moved from the living room toward the kitchen, coming closer to my office, I retreated to the corner furthest from the door, still whispering updates to the 911 dispatcher. Sir, officers are 1 minute out, the dispatcher said. They're approaching without sirens to avoid alerting the intruders. Stay hidden and quiet. On the security feed, I watched Amanda opening my liquor cabinet, pocketing an expensive bottle of whiskey a client had given me as a thank you gift. My father was unplugging my gaming system while my mother swept broken decorative items into a garbage bag, presumably to hide evidence of specific items they'd destroyed. The sudden wail of the security alarm made all 3 of them freeze. The system had automatically notified the security company of the break-in, and the 60-second entry delay had expired. The ear-splitting sound was followed immediately by flashing lights outside as police cars pulled up to the house. Police! Exit the house with your hands up! A voice commanded through a loudspeaker. The look of panic on my family's faces would have been satisfying if the situation weren't so tragic. They had caused at least $50,000 in damage to my home in less than 10 minutes, destroying irreplaceable mementos alongside valuable electronics. What do we do? I heard my mother cry over the alarm. Run out the back, Amanda shouted. Freeze! Police! New voices shouted from the back door as officers surrounded the house. With my phone still connected to 911, I watched the security feed as officers entered with weapons drawn, ordering my family to the ground. Amanda was crying. My mother looked shell-shocked, and my father's face had gone from rage to utter disbelief as handcuffs were placed on all three of them. Only when they were secured did the dispatcher instruct me to unlock my office door and identify myself to the officers. As I emerged, the full extent of the destruction hit me. My living room was unrecognizable. Furniture overturned and broken, electronics smashed, family photos shattered, walls dented from bad impacts. The home I had worked so hard for had been violently violated by the very people who should have been proud of my achievement. Officer Ramirez recognized me immediately. "Are you hurt, Mr. Wright?" "No," I replied, still processing the scene. "Just in shock. We've arrested 3 individuals. Can you identify them?" I nodded numbly. My father, mother, and sister. Thomas, Susan, and Amanda Wright. She looked surprised despite my previous reports. "Your own family did this?" "Yes, because I wouldn't sell my house to pay my sister's gambling debts." As officers escorted my handcuffed family through the living room toward the front door, my father suddenly stopped, looking around in confusion at a framed document on the wall that had somehow survived the destruction. It was a copy of the trust transfer, which I had displayed as a kind of insurance policy. "Wait," he said, squinting to read it. "What is this?" "This says the house belongs to something called Evergreen Living Trust." His eyes found mine, widening in realization. "You don't even own this house anymore?" "No," I confirmed, a strange calm replacing my earlier fear. "I legally transferred ownership weeks ago, after your threats started. Even if you had forced me to sell, the proceeds wouldn't have been mine to give you." My mother gasped. Amanda's face contorted with rage. "You tricked us!" "No," I corrected her. "I protected myself, legally and ethically, from people who were willing to destroy my life to enable your addiction. There's a difference." As the officers continued leading them out, my father turned back, his expression shifting from anger to desperation. "Connor, you can't let them take us to jail. We're your parents." "You stopped being my parents 5 years ago," I replied, the words bringing both pain and a strange sense of closure. "When you chose Amanda over me. Now you'll have to face the consequences of that choice." "Please," my mother begged as an officer guided her toward the door. "Call someone to bail us out. We don't have anyone else." The irony was almost too much to bear. After years of exclusion, after destroying my home and attempting to rob me, they were asking for my help. In that moment, surrounded by the wreckage of my living room, I realized I had a choice about the kind of person I wanted to be, even in the face of such betrayal. What I decided would shape not just their futures, but mine as well. The police station smelled of industrial cleaner and stale coffee. I sat in an interview room, across from Detective Morris, who had been assigned to my case after the arrests. "The damage to your property is extensive," he said, reviewing photographs of my destroyed living room. "Conservative estimates put it at $50,000, and that's not counting sentimental items or psychological impact." I nodded numbly, still processing the surreal reality that my own family sat in holding cells somewhere in the same building. "Breaking and entering, destruction of property, attempted theft," Morris continued. "Given the premeditation evident in the security footage and the value of damages, these are serious felony charges. They're looking at potential prison time, especially with the documented history of harassment and vandalism leading up to this incident." "Have they said anything?" I asked. "Your father and mother are requesting legal representation. Your sister, however, has been more talkative." He consulted his notes. "She claims they never intended to steal anything. Just make a point." The video evidence contradicts that claim. I wasn't surprised. Amanda had been evading responsibility her entire life. "There's something else you should know," Morris added, sliding a document across the table. "We obtained a warrant to search your sister's phone based on the evidence of premeditated criminal activity. We found these text messages between her and someone named Ray. The messages were damning. Amanda had been communicating with someone about getting money from the house sale and laying low in Arizona until things cool down. Further exchanges revealed her plan to take the money supposedly meant for debt repayment and disappear, leaving our parents to face the consequences with both the creditors and me. She never intended to pay off her debts with the money from your house, Morris explained unnecessarily. Based on these messages and other evidence, we believe she planned to flee the state with whatever funds she could extract from you and your parents. The revelation should have angered me, but instead, it just deepened my sadness. The depth of Amanda's manipulation extended beyond what even I had imagined. There's one more thing, Morris said. Your parents' statements indicate they believe your sister owes money to dangerous people. However, we found no evidence of threats from external parties in her phone records or yours. The only threatening messages came from numbers associated with your parents and sister. They invented the loan sharks, I realized aloud, to make the situation seem more urgent. That appears to be the case. Your sister has gambling debts, certainly, but to conventional casinos and credit card companies, not organized crime figures. As this new information settled in, an officer knocked and entered. The suspects are asking to speak with Mr. Wright. All three of them. Morris looked at me questioningly. That's your choice. You're under no obligation to speak with them. Part of me wanted to walk away, to let the legal system handle everything without further emotional involvement. But another part needed closure, needed to confront them with the truth that had been revealed. I'll talk to them, I decided. Separately, starting with my sister. Amanda was brought to the interview room first, her makeup smeared and designer clothes rumpled from hours in a holding cell. She launched into her performance immediately. Connor, thank God, she began, eyes wide with manufactured fear. You have to help us. This is all a huge misunderstanding. Save it, Amanda, I interrupted, sliding the printout of her text messages across the table. They found your text to Ray. I know you were planning to take the money and run to Arizona. Her expression flickered between shock, anger, and calculation before settling on indignation. Those messages are being taken out of context. Like the context of you directing Mom and Dad to my valuables while simultaneously destroying my home? That context? We were desperate. These people are dangerous. There are no dangerous people, Amanda. The police checked. The only threats came from you and Mom and Dad. You made it all up to pressure me. For the first time, her composure completely cracked. What was I supposed to do? They were going to take everything from me, garnish my wages, ruin my credit forever. So, instead you decided to ruin my life? Destroy the home I worked for years to buy? Manipulate our parents into committing crimes that could send them to prison? They chose to help me, just like they always have. She shot back. Unlike you, who's always been too selfish to be part of this family. The absurdity of her statement might have made me laugh if the situation weren't so tragic. Amanda, do you even hear yourself? You're facing felony charges for destroying my home because I wouldn't sell it to pay your gambling debts, and I'm the selfish one? You don't understand addiction, she muttered, looking away. You're right. I don't understand choosing to continue destructive behavior while expecting others to bear the consequences. And I don't understand parents who enable that behavior at the expense of their other child. Amanda's eyes narrowed. So, that's what this is about? You're still bitter that Mom and Dad loved me more? The question hung in the air between us. 5 years ago, it might have hurt deeply. Now, it just confirmed how little she understood about my motivations. This isn't about who Mom and Dad loved more. It's about personal responsibility, something you've never had to learn because they've always shielded you from consequences. So now you're punishing all of us by pressing charges, she accused. No, I'm allowing the natural consequences of your actions to finally take place. There's a difference. I stood up, having heard enough. Goodbye, Amanda. I hope you get the help you need, in whatever form that takes. My mother was brought in next, her eyes red and swollen from crying. Unlike Amanda, she didn't immediately launch into excuses. They're saying we could go to prison, she said quietly, her voice shaking. The detective mentioned that possibility, yes. Connor, please. We're your parents. We made mistakes, but we don't deserve this. What do you think I deserved, Mom? To be cut off for 5 years? To have my home destroyed? To be manipulated and threatened? She looked down at her hands. We were desperate. Amanda told us these people would hurt us if we didn't pay. There were no people, Mom. Amanda made that up. The police checked her phone records. Her head snapped up, Disbelief etched across her face. That can't be right. It is. She was planning to take whatever money she could get from my house and run away to Arizona. She played you just like she's been playing you her entire life. My mother's face crumpled as the truth sank in. Why would she do that to us? The question contained decades of enabling and willing blindness. Because you taught her she could. Because there have never been consequences for her actions. Tears streamed down her face. We thought we were helping her. You weren't. Real help would have been teaching her responsibility, setting boundaries, getting her addiction treatment years ago. Instead, you protected her from reality at everyone's expense, including your own. She reached across the table, hand trembling. Please don't abandon us now, Connor. We need you. I never abandoned you, Mom. You abandoned me, remember? When I wouldn't risk financial ruin for Amanda's boutique. We were wrong, she whispered. So wrong. It was the first genuine acknowledgement of wrongdoing I'd heard from either of my parents in decades. Not excuses, not justifications, just recognition of a fundamental mistake. It wasn't enough to undo the damage, but it was something. My father was the last to enter, his normally commanding presence diminished by the orange jumpsuit and handcuffs. He sat down heavily, looking older than his 62 years. The police say Amanda lied about the loan sharks, he stated, without preamble. Yes, and she was planning to take the money and run. That's what the evidence shows. He nodded slowly, as if pieces of a puzzle were finally fitting together. She's been lying to us for years, hasn't she? Probably, I agreed. But you made it easy for her, by always believing the version of reality that made her the victim and everyone else the villain. To my surprise, he didn't argue. I wanted to believe in her, to believe I was being a good father by supporting her no matter what. Even when that meant being a terrible father to me? The question hung in the air between us, cutting through years of unacknowledged hurt. My father's eyes met mine, really seeing me perhaps for the first time in years. Yes, he admitted. Even then, especially then. He sighed heavily. It was easier to paint you as the villain than to admit we'd failed with Amanda. You were always so capable, so self-sufficient. You made it easy for us to focus on her. That's not much of an excuse. It's not meant to be, just an explanation. He leaned forward. Connor, I know we have no right to ask anything of you. But please, help your mother if you can. She doesn't deserve prison. And you do? I led us here. I encouraged her to break into your house. I swung that bat. His voice broke. I destroyed my son's home because I couldn't face the truth about my daughter. For the first time, I glimpsed the man my father might have been, without the distorting lens of Amanda's manipulations. It was too late for the relationship we should have had, but perhaps not too late for something new to emerge from the ashes of the old. As our time ended, and guards prepared to take him back to his cell, my father asked one final question. What will you do now? About the charges? I stood up, considering my words carefully. I don't know yet. But whatever I decide, it will be based on what's truly best for everyone, not just what's easiest or most comfortable. That's the difference between enabling and helping. It's time you all learned that distinction. As I left the police station, the weight of 3 lives rested on my shoulders. Their futures depended largely on my decisions about pressing charges, a responsibility I never asked for but couldn't ethically avoid. The path forward wasn't clear, but I knew it had to balance justice with compassion, consequences with opportunity for genuine change. What was clear was that I couldn't make this decision from a place of either vengeful anger or misplaced guilt. For perhaps the first time in my family's history, someone needed to make choices based on what was truly needed rather than what was wanted or demanded. That night, as I slept in a hotel while my destroyed home awaited repair, I dreamed not of baseball bats and broken glass, but of rebuilding something that had been broken far longer than my living room. The truth about who we were as a family, and who we might yet become. 3 days after the arrest, I sat across from Diana Edwards in her office. Legal papers spread between us. The morning sun cast long rectangles of light across her desk as we discussed options. You have every right to press forward with all charges, she explained. The evidence is overwhelming. Your sister is looking at 5 to 7 years given her role as instigator and the financial motivations. Your parents likely 3 to 5, depending on the judge. I nodded, having spent sleepless nights considering the implications. And if I don't press charges, that's not entirely up to you. The state can proceed without your cooperation, though your wishes would be taken into consideration. Breaking and entering, destruction of property of this magnitude, these are serious offenses. What about alternatives? Community service? Mandated treatment? Diana leaned back in her chair. For first-time offenders, there might be options. Your parents have no prior record. Your sister has a DUI from 3 years ago, but nothing violent. A good defense attorney might negotiate for probation with strict conditions, including restitution, community service, and mandatory counseling. Could those conditions include addiction treatment for my sister? Financial counseling for all of them? Absolutely. Judges often include rehabilitative requirements in probation terms. After further discussion, I made my decision. I would not advocate for maximum penalties, but neither would I request that charges be dropped entirely. Instead, I would support a resolution that required accountability, while offering pathways to genuine change. I hired attorneys for my parents, but not for Amanda, who needed to experience at least some natural consequences. Through their lawyers, my parents negotiated a plea deal: 1 month in county jail, followed by 3 years probation, 200 hours of community service each, mandatory financial counseling, and shared responsibility for restitution payments. Amanda, with her court-appointed attorney, received a harsher sentence: 6 months in county jail, 5 years probation, 500 hours of community service, mandatory gambling addiction treatment, and primary responsibility for restitution. The judge also ordered her to maintain steady employment throughout her probation, with regular check-ins and financial monitoring. The day before my parents were to be released from their month in jail, I visited them. The meeting room was sparse but private, allowing for conversation without the barriers of phones and glass. The repairs to your house, my father began awkwardly. Are they progressing? Yes. Insurance covered most of it after the deductible. The living room is completely redone. We'll pay you back, my mother promised. Every penny of the deductible, plus whatever insurance didn't cover. I know you will. It's in the restitution order. An uncomfortable silence filled the room. So much damage had been done, not just to my house, but to any foundation of trust that might have existed between us. We've been attending financial counseling here, my mother offered, learning how we enabled Amanda's addiction through our financial choices. It's been enlightening, my father added, and painful to recognize the patterns. I nodded, acknowledging their efforts, without offering easy absolution. That's a good start. Connor, my mother's voice wavered. We know words aren't enough, but we are truly sorry. Not just for the break-in, but for everything. For choosing Amanda over you all those years. For cutting you out when you were simply being responsible. My father cleared his throat. We failed you as parents. We recognized Amanda's problems too late, and even then, we made them your burden instead of addressing them properly. Their apology seemed genuine, free from the manipulative undertones that had characterized our interactions for years. Prison, counseling, and the shock of Amanda's betrayal had apparently cracked open decades of denial. I appreciate that, I said carefully. But rebuilding trust will take time. And consistent actions, not just words. We understand, my father said. We don't expect forgiveness right away, if ever, but we'd like the chance to show you we can change. To have some kind of relationship going forward, whatever form that takes. That's possible, I conceded, but it needs to be built on new foundations, not old patterns. And it can never again include enabling destructive behavior or expecting me to sacrifice my well-being for Amanda's poor choices. They both nodded solemnly. My mother wiped away tears. What about Amanda? Will you visit her too? Eventually. She has 5 more months here, followed by the treatment program. She needs to experience the full consequences of her actions, without rescue. That's fair, my father acknowledged, surprising me with his supportive boundaries for Amanda. The counselor says that's what she's needed all along. As the visit ended, my mother hesitantly asked, when we're released tomorrow, where will we go? The bank foreclosed on the house while we were here. It was the question I had anticipated. I've arranged for temporary housing through a program for people transitioning out of incarceration. 3 months in a supervised apartment while you find jobs and save for your own place. Relief washed over their faces. Thank you, Connor, my mother whispered. This isn't a bailout, I clarified. It's giving you the tools to rebuild your lives properly. The program includes continued financial counseling and job placement assistance. The rest is up to you. 6 months later, I sat in my fully restored living room, reflecting on the changes the break-in had ultimately catalyzed. My parents were 3 months into their apartment lease, both working modest jobs and making regular restitution payments. They attended weekly financial counseling and had, for perhaps the first time, created and maintained a realistic budget. Amanda had completed her jail time and entered a residential treatment program for gambling addiction. Her letters from treatment showed glimmers of insight about her manipulative patterns, though whether this represented genuine change or strategic compliance remained to be seen. The property trust had served its purpose, and Jack had transferred the house back into my name once all legal matters were resolved. The security system remained in place, a precaution I wasn't yet ready to abandon. Our family relationships were cautiously rebuilding on new terms. I had dinner with my parents monthly, conversations gradually expanding beyond superficial topics as small measures of trust were established. I had visited Amanda once in treatment, a tense but necessary conversation that acknowledged the damage done without promising easy reconciliation. Most significantly, I had started a support group for people dealing with family financial exploitation, creating a space where others could share experiences and strategies for establishing healthy boundaries. The group had grown steadily, revealing how common these painful dynamics were and how few resources existed for those caught in them. One evening, in late autumn, as fallen leaves swirled across my repaired front yard, I received a call from my father. "I wanted you to know," he said without preamble, "that Amanda asked us for money yesterday. For the first time, we said no." The simple statement represented a seismic shift in family patterns that had persisted for decades. "How did that feel?" I asked. "Terrifying," he admitted, "but also right. She's working now, and the program provides housing. She wanted money for treats, but couldn't explain what exactly. The old me would have transferred funds immediately to avoid her disappointment." "I'm proud of you," I said, meaning it. That couldn't have been easy. It wasn't. "But I keep thinking about what you said months ago, about the difference between helping and enabling. I want to be helpful to both my children from now on, not just the squeaky wheel." As we talked further, I realized that the violent destruction of my living room had ultimately led to the dismantling of something far more damaging: the dysfunctional system that had held our family captive for decades. From the wreckage, something healthier was slowly emerging, with clear boundaries, honest communication, and genuine accountability. The journey wasn't over. Trust rebuilds slowly, and addiction recovery happens one day at a time. My parents faced years of financial recovery, and Amanda's true commitment to change would only reveal itself over time. But for perhaps the first time, all of us were facing reality together instead of enabling destructive fantasies. As I prepared for bed that night, I paused by the living room window, looking out at the peaceful street. The house that my family had tried to take from me had become not just a symbol of my independence, but the catalyst for a painful and necessary transformation. By refusing to sacrifice my boundaries even in the face of baseball bats and broken glass, I had ultimately offered my family something far more valuable than money: the opportunity to finally face truth and build lives based on reality rather than manipulation and denial. The lesson had come at a tremendous cost, but its value was becoming clearer with each passing day. True love doesn't enable destruction. It establishes boundaries that create space for genuine growth and change. Sometimes the kindest thing we can do for those we care about is to let them face the natural consequences of their choices, standing ready to support recovery without rescuing them from reality. Have you ever had to set difficult boundaries with loved ones to protect yourself? The hardest lessons often come from those closest to us, but they can lead to the most profound growth for everyone involved. I hope my story shows that standing firm in your truth, even when it feels impossibly difficult, can sometimes be the most loving choice you can make. If this resonated with you, please leave a comment sharing your experience. And if you found value in this journey, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share with others who might benefit from these hard-earned insights. Thank you for witnessing my story, and I wish you strength and clarity in your own boundary-setting journey.